Hi, I'm Ben.
And I'm Serena.
We got married at 22.
And we became parents at 24.
Well, we had the opportunity to start life when I got my orders from the Air Force to go to New Mexico. So we decided to get married and start a new life there. Well, the Air Force basically took care of us. There was a living allowance given to us when we were deployed in New Mexico. Wives were not allowed to work because of tax reasons, so Serena took up a full-time psychology degree. It was very comfortable because we lived on base housing where, rent was covered and utilities was covered. We were able to save a little bit of money by not touching the salary, which was not that much to begin with, but it was very comfortable. And it was a small cowboy town, so it was very simple living, and we cooked all our meals and we hardly went out to eat. The most exciting thing we had there was Walmart, right?
And snow and tumbleweeds.
Well, when Christopher was born, the expenses were pretty much covered by the Air Force. We didn't have a child care services until he was 6 months because it was a long waiting list. It's a lot different from here where, we don't have in-laws or helpers to take care of the baby. We were all on our own. The transition was pretty tough. Moving back from a rural cowboy town back into a bustling city.
And bearing in mind we're only 26, it's different.
And Serena was going on to do early childhood development course, so she wasn't really working. So it was a single income family.
The challenge would have been different if we were just two of us. But now we are a young family with a young child. And that itself is scary.
So that actually increased the stress and the burden for expenses, just spending from hand to pocket. And obviously the Air Force salaries weren't that great, so it was challenging. And also coming back to Singapore, the expenses start to mount up. And now when we bought our own flat, we have to start thinking about utility bills and credit card bills, as well as keeping a household together. So it was quite tough initially when we transitioned back to Singapore. Leaving the Air Force going into the civilian world was very tough. I was very fortunate to get into a commercial aviation job, but with putting in a lot of hard work and determination, I've seen my salary grow and increase through the years. So that helped with the financial situations. And at that point of time, Serena also had gotten a job, and it helped with the situation with dual income. So the great thing we had was we managed to save up some money while we were stationed in the US. By the time we got back, we got our HDB flat. And since I was signed on with the Air Force since I was 17, I had some CPF savings. So pretty much our HDB flat was paid off with CPF money. And when we got the keys for the flat, we used the savings from the 3 years we were in New Mexico for a very minor renovation. When we had Nikki, it was a slightly different situation. We were both financially quite stable.
We waited a while before deciding to have the second one. And that first few years was so tough. We didn't think that we wanted one so soon, but we definitely wanted another one now. That was also a decision we made to have the second one 6 years later.
The most expensive thing about raising kids in Singapore is feeding them.
Then after that will be school.
So the first big expense are diapers, where they go through a lot of diapers. So that's a very expensive thing to start with. Then to feed and clothe them, it's a high cost as well. And when they start to go to school, school fees can be quite expensive depending on where you want to bring them. The main thing we would have done different was
not have kids. No.
The advice would be to consolidate your expenses a little bit better. I think spending unnecessarily is something that I would have done much better.